Paper 6. The Eternal Son. The Eternal Son is the perfect and final expression of the first, personal, and absolute concept of the Universal Father. Accordingly, whenever and however the Father personally and absolutely expresses himself, he does so through his Eternal Son, who ever has been, now is, and ever will be, the living and divine Word. And this Eternal Son is residential at the center of all things, in association with, and immediately enshrouding the personal presence of, the Eternal and Universal Father. We speak of God's first thought and allude to an impossible time origin of the Eternal Son for the purpose of gaining access to the thought channels of the human intellect. Such distortions of language represent our best efforts at contact compromise with the time-bound minds of mortal creatures. In the sequential sense, the Universal Father never could have had a first thought, nor could the Eternal Son ever have had a beginning. But I was instructed to portray the realities of eternity to the time-limited minds of mortals by such symbols of thought, and to designate the relationships of eternity by such time concepts of sequentiality. The Eternal Son is the spiritual personalization of the Paradise Father's universal and infinite concept of divine reality, unqualified spirit, and absolute personality. And thereby does the Son constitute the divine revelation of the Creator identity of the Universal Father. The perfect personality of the Son discloses that the Father is actually the eternal and universal source of all the meanings and values of the spiritual, the volitional, the purposeful, and the personal. In an effort to enable the finite mind of time to form some sequential concept of the relationships of the eternal and infinite beings of the Paradise Trinity, we utilize such license of conception as to refer to the Father's first personal, universal, and infinite concept. It is impossible for me to convey to the human mind any adequate idea of the eternal relations of the deities. Therefore, do I employ such terms as will afford the finite mind something of an idea of the relationship of these eternal beings in the subsequent eras of time. We believe the Son sprang from the Father. We are taught that both are unqualifiedly eternal. It is apparent, therefore, that no time creature can ever fully comprehend this mystery of a Son who is derived from the Father, and yet who is coordinately eternal with the Father himself. 1. Identity of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son is the original and only begotten Son of God. He is God the Son, the second person of deity, and the associate creator of all things. As the Father is the first great source and center, so the Eternal Son is the second great source and center. The Eternal Son is the spiritual center and the divine administrator of the spiritual government of the universe of universes. The Universal Father is first a creator and then a controller. The Eternal Son is first a co-creator and then a spiritual administrator. God is spirit, and the Son is a personal revelation of that spirit. The first source and center is the volitional absolute. The second source and center is the personality absolute. The Universal Father never personally functions as a creator except in conjunction with the Son or with the coordinate action of the Son. Had the New Testament writer referred to the Eternal Son, he would have uttered the truth when he wrote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made." When a son of the Eternal Son appeared on Urantia, those who fraternized with this divine being in human form alluded to him as "He who was from the beginning, whom we have heard, whom we have seen with our eyes, whom we have looked upon, and our hands have handled, even the word of life." And this bestowal Son came forth from the Father just as truly as did the original Son, as is suggested in one of his earthly prayers. "And now, O my Father, glorify me with your own self, with the glory which I had with you before this world was. The Eternal Son is known by different names in various universes. In the central universe, he is known as the coordinate source, the co-creator, and the associate absolute. On Uversa, the headquarters of the super-universe, we designate the Son as the coordinate spirit center and as the eternal spirit administrator. On Selvington, the headquarters of your local universe, this Son is of record as the second eternal source and center. The Melchizedeks speak of him as the Son of Sons. On your world, but not in your system of inhabited spheres, this original Son has been confused with the coordinate Creator Son, Michael of Nebadon, who bestowed himself upon the mortal races of Urantia. Although any of the Paradise Sons may fittingly be called Sons of God, we are in the habit of reserving the designation the Eternal Son for this original Son, the second source and center, co-creator with the universal Father of the central universe of power and perfection, and co-creator of all other divine sons who spring from the infinite deities. 2. Nature of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son is just as changeless and infinitely dependable as the universal Father. He is also just as spiritual as the Father, just as truly an unlimited spirit. To you of lowly origin, the Son would appear to be more personal, since he is one step nearer you in approachability than is the universal Father. The Eternal Son is the eternal Word of God. He is wholly like the Father. In fact, the Eternal Son is God the Father personally manifest to the universe of universes. And thus it was and is and forever will be true of the Eternal Son and of all the coordinate Creator Sons. He who has seen the Son has seen the Father. In nature, the Son is wholly like the Spirit Father. When we worship the Universal Father, actually, we at the same time worship God the Son and God the Spirit. God the Son is just as divinely real and eternal in nature as God the Father. The Son not only possesses all the Father's infinite and transcendent righteousness, but the Son is also reflective of all the Father's holiness of character. The Son shares the Father's perfection and jointly shares the responsibility of aiding all creatures of imperfection in their spiritual efforts to attain divine perfection. The Eternal Son possesses all the Father's character of divinity and attributes of spirituality. The Son is the fullness of God's absoluteness in personality and spirit, and these qualities the Son reveals in his personal management of the spiritual government of the universe of universes. God is, indeed, a universal spirit. God is spirit, and this spirit nature of the Father is focalized and personalized in the deity of the Eternal Son. In the Son, all spiritual characteristics are apparently greatly enhanced by differentiation from the universality of the first source and center. And as the Father shares his spirit nature with the Son, so do they together just as fully and unreservedly share the divine spirit with the conjoint actor, the infinite spirit. In the love of truth and in the creation of beauty, the Father and the Son are equal, except that the Son appears to devote himself more to the realization of the exclusively spiritual beauty of universal values. In divine goodness, I discern no difference between the Father and the Son. The Father loves his universe children as a father. The Eternal Son looks upon all creatures both as father and as brother. 3. Ministry of the Father's love. The Son shares the justice and righteousness of the Trinity, but overshadows these divinity traits by the infinite personalization of the Father's love and mercy. The Son is the revelation of divine love to the universes. As God is love, so the Son is mercy. The Son cannot love more than the Father, but he can show mercy to creatures in one additional way, for he not only is a primal creator like the Father, but he is also the eternal Son of that same Father, thereby sharing in the sonship experience of all other sons of the universal Father. The eternal Son is the great mercy minister to all creation. Mercy is the essence of the Son's spiritual character. The mandates of the eternal Son, as they go forth over the spirit circuits of the second source and center, are keyed in tones of mercy. To comprehend the love of the eternal Son, you must first perceive its divine source, the Father, who is love, and then behold the unfolding of this infinite affection in the far-flung ministry of the infinite Spirit and his almost limitless host of ministering personalities. The ministry of the eternal Son is devoted to the revelation of the God of love to the universe of universes. This divine Son is not engaged in the ignoble task of trying to persuade his gracious Father to love his lowly creatures and to show mercy to the wrongdoers of time. How wrong to envisage the eternal Son as appealing to the universal Father to show mercy to his lowly creatures on the material worlds of space. Such concepts of God are crude and grotesque. Rather should you realize that all the merciful ministrations of the sons of God are a direct revelation of the Father's heart of universal love and infinite compassion. The Father's love is the real and eternal source of the Son's mercy. God is love, the Son is mercy. Mercy is applied love, the Father's love in action in the person of his eternal Son. The love of this universal Son is likewise universal. As love is comprehended on a sex planet, the love of God is more comparable to the love of a father, while the love of the eternal Son is more like the affection of a mother. Crude, indeed, are such illustrations, but I employ them in the hope of conveying to the human mind the thought that there is a difference, not in divine content, but in quality and technique of expression, between the love of the Father and the love of the Son. 4. Attributes of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son motivates the spirit level of cosmic reality. The spiritual power of the Son is absolute in relation to all universe actualities. He exercises perfect control over the interassociation of all undifferentiated spirit energy and over all actualized spirit reality through his absolute grasp of spirit gravity. All pure, unfragmented spirit and all spiritual beings and values are responsive to the infinite drawing power of the primal Son of Paradise. And if the eternal future should witness the appearance of an unlimited universe, the spirit gravity and the spirit power of the original Son will be found wholly adequate for the spiritual control and effective administration of such a boundless creation. The Son is omnipotent only in the spiritual realm. In the eternal economy of universe administration, wasteful and needless repetition of function is never encountered. The deities are not given to useless duplication of universe ministry. The omnipresence of the original Son constitutes the spiritual unity of the universe of universes. The spiritual cohesion of all creation rests upon the everywhere active presence of the divine Spirit of the Eternal Son. When we conceive of the Father's spiritual presence, we find it difficult to differentiate it in our thinking from the spiritual presence of the Eternal Son. The Spirit of the Father is eternally resident in the Spirit of the Son. The Father must be spiritually omnipresent, but such omnipresence appears to be inseparable from the everywhere spirit activities of the Eternal Son. We do, however, believe that in all situations of Father-Son presence of a dual spiritual nature, the Spirit of the Son is coordinate with the Spirit of the Father. In his contact with personality, the Father acts in the personality circuit. In his personal and detectable contact with spiritual creation, he appears in the fragments of the totality of his deity, and these father fragments have a solitary, unique, and exclusive function wherever and whenever they appear in the universes. In all such situations, the spirit of the Son is coordinate with the spiritual function of the fragmented presence of the Universal Father. Spiritually, the Eternal Son is omnipresent. The Spirit of the Eternal Son is most certainly with you and around you, but not within you and a part of you like the mystery monitor. The indwelling Father fragment adjusts the human mind to progressively divine attitudes, whereupon such an ascending mind becomes increasingly responsive to the spiritual drawing power of the all-powerful spirit-gravity circuit of the second source and center. The original Son is universally and spiritually self-conscious. In wisdom, the Son is the full equal of the Father. In the realms of knowledge, omniscience, we cannot distinguish between the first and second sources. Like the Father, the Son knows all. He is never surprised by any universe event. He comprehends the end from the beginning. The Father and the Son really know the number and whereabouts of all the spirits and spiritualized beings in the universe of universes. Not only does the Son know all things by virtue of his own omnipresent spirit, but the Son, equally with the Father and the conjoint actor, is fully cognizant of the vast reflectivity intelligence of the Supreme Being, which intelligence is at all times aware of all things that transpire on all the worlds of the 7 super-universes. And there are other ways in which the Paradise Son is omniscient. The Eternal Son, as a loving, merciful, and ministering spiritual personality, is wholly and infinitely equal with the Universal Father, while in all those merciful and affectionate personal contacts with the ascendant beings of the lower realms, the Eternal Son is just as kind and considerate, just as patient and long-suffering, as are his Paradise Sons in the local universes who so frequently bestow themselves upon the evolutionary worlds of time. It is needless further to expatiate on the attributes of the Eternal Son. With the exceptions noted, it is only necessary to study the spiritual attributes of God the Father to understand and correctly evaluate the attributes of God the Son. 5. Limitations of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son does not personally function in the physical domains, nor does he function, except through the conjoint actor, in the levels of mind ministry to creature beings. But these qualifications do not in any manner otherwise limit the Eternal Son in the full and free exercise of all the divine attributes of spiritual omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. The Eternal Son does not personally pervade the potentials of spirit inherent in the infinity of the Deity Absolute, but as these potentials become actual, they come within the all-powerful grasp of the spirit-gravity circuit of the Son. Personality is the exclusive gift of the Universal Father. The Eternal Son derives personality from the Father, but he does not, without the Father, bestow personality. The Son gives origin to a vast spirit host, but such derivations are not personalities. When the Son creates personality, he does so in conjunction with the Father or with the conjoint Creator, who may act for the Father in such relationships. The Eternal Son is thus a co-creator of personalities, but he bestows personality upon no being, and of himself alone never creates personal beings. This limitation of action does not, however, deprive the Son of the ability to create any or all types of other than personal reality. The Eternal Son is limited in transmittal of creator prerogatives. The Father, in eternalizing the original Son, bestowed upon him the power and privilege of subsequently joining with the Father in the divine act of producing additional sons possessing creative attributes, and this they have done and now do. But when these coordinate sons have been produced, the prerogatives of creatorship are apparently not further transmissible. The Eternal Son transmits creatorship powers only to the first or direct personalization. Therefore, when the Father and the Son unite to personalize a Creator Son, they achieve their purpose. But the Creator Son thus brought into existence is never able to transmit or delegate the prerogatives of creatorship to the various orders of sons which he may subsequently create, notwithstanding that, in the highest local universe sons, there does appear a very limited reflection of the creative attributes of a Creator Son. The Eternal Son, as an infinite and exclusively personal being, cannot fragmentize his nature, cannot distribute and bestow individualized portions of his selfhood upon other entities or persons, as do the Universal Father and the Infinite Spirit. But the Son can and does bestow himself as an unlimited spirit to bathe all creation and unceasingly draw all spirit personalities and spiritual realities to himself. Ever remember, the Eternal Son is the personal portrayal of the Spirit Father to all creation. The Son is personal and nothing but personal in the deity sense. Such a divine and absolute personality cannot be disintegrated or fragmentized. God the Father and God the Spirit are truly personal, but they are also everything else in addition to being such deity personalities. Though the Eternal Son cannot personally participate in the bestowal of the thought adjusters, he did sit in council with the Universal Father in the eternal past, approving the plan and pledging endless cooperation when the Father, in projecting the bestowal of the thought adjusters, proposed to the Son, "Let us make mortal man in our own image." And as the spirit fragment of the Father dwells within you, so does the spirit presence of the Son envelop you, while these two forever work as one for your spiritual advancement. 6. The Spirit Mind. The Eternal Son is spirit and has mind, but not a mind or a spirit which mortal mind can comprehend. Mortal man perceives mind on the finite, cosmic, material, and personal levels. Man also observes mind phenomena in living organisms functioning on the subpersonal, animal level, but it is difficult for him to grasp the nature of mind when associated with supermaterial beings and as a part of exclusive spirit personalities. Mind must, however, be differently defined when it refers to the spirit level of existence, and when it is used to denote spirit functions of intelligence. That kind of mind which is directly allied with spirit is comparable neither to that mind which coordinates spirit and matter, nor to that mind which is allied only with matter. Spirit is ever conscious, minded, and possessed of varied phases of identity. Without mind in some phase, there would be no spiritual consciousness in the fraternity of spirit beings. The equivalent of mind, the ability to know and be known, is indigenous to deity. Deity may be personal, prepersonal, superpersonal, or impersonal, but deity is never mindless, that is, never without the ability at least to communicate with similar entities, beings, or personalities. The mind of the Eternal Son is like that of the Father, but unlike any other mind in the universe, and with the mind of the Father it is ancestor to the diverse and far-flung minds of the conjoint Creator. The mind of the Father and the Son, that intellect which is ancestral to the absolute mind of the third source and center, is perhaps best illustrated in the pre-mind of a thought adjuster, for, though these father fragments are entirely outside of the mind circuits of the conjoint actor, they have some form of pre-mind. They know as they are known. They enjoy the equivalent of human thinking. The Eternal Son is wholly spiritual. Man is very nearly entirely material. Therefore, much pertaining to the spirit personality of the Eternal Son, to his 7 spiritual spheres encircling paradise, and to the nature of the impersonal creations of the Paradise Son, will have to await your attainment of spirit status following your completion of the Urantia ascension of the local universe of Nebadan. And then, as you pass through the super-universe and on to Havona, many of these spirit-concealed mysteries will clarify as you begin to be endowed with the mind of the Spirit, spiritual insight. 7. Personality of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son is that infinite personality from whose unqualified personality fetters the Universal Father escaped by the technique of trinitization, and by virtue of which he has ever since continued to bestow himself in endless profusion upon his ever-expanding universe of creators and creatures. The Son is absolute personality. God is Father personality, the source of personality, the bestower of personality, the cause of personality. Every personal being derives personality from the Universal Father, just as the original Son eternally derives his personality from the Paradise Father. The personality of the Paradise Son is absolute and purely spiritual, and this absolute personality is also the divine and eternal pattern, first of the Father's bestowal of personality upon the conjoint actor, and subsequently of his bestowal of personality upon the myriads of his creatures throughout a far-flung universe. The Eternal Son is truly a merciful minister, a divine spirit, a spiritual power, and a real personality. The Son is the spiritual and personal nature of God made manifest to the universes, the sum and substance of the first source and center, divested of all that which is non-personal, extra-divine, non-spiritual, and pure potential. But it is impossible to convey to the human mind a word picture of the beauty and grandeur of the supernal personality of the Eternal Son. Everything that tends to obscure the Universal Father operates with almost equal influence to prevent the conceptual recognition of the Eternal Son. You must await your attainment of paradise, and then you will understand why I was unable to portray the character of this absolute personality to the understanding of the finite mind. 8. Realization of the Eternal Son. Concerning identity, nature, and other attributes of personality, the Eternal Son is the full equal, the perfect complement, and the eternal counterpart of the Universal Father. In the same sense that God is the Universal Father, the Son is the Universal Mother, and all of us, high and low, constitute their universal family. To appreciate the character of the Son, you should study the revelation of the divine character of the Father. They are forever and inseparably one. As divine personalities, they are virtually indistinguishable by the lower orders of intelligence. They are not so difficult of separate recognition by those whose origin is in the creative acts of the deities themselves. Beings of nativity in the central universe and on paradise discern the Father and the Son not only as one personal unity of universal control, but also as two separate personalities functioning in definite domains of universe administration. As persons, you may conceive of the Universal Father and the Eternal Son as separate individuals, for they indeed are. But in the administration of the universes, they are so intertwined and interrelated that it is not always possible to distinguish between them. When, in the affairs of the universes, the Father and the Son are encountered in confusing interassociations, it is not always profitable to attempt to segregate their operations. Merely recall that God is the initiating thought and the Son is the expressionful word. In each local universe, this inseparability is personalized in the divinity of the Creator's Son, who stands for both Father and Son to the creatures of 10 million inhabited worlds. The Eternal Son is infinite, but he is approachable through the persons of his paradise sons and through the patient ministry of the Infinite Spirit. Without the bestowal service of the Paradise Sons and the loving ministry of the creatures of the Infinite Spirit, beings of material origin could hardly hope to attain the Eternal Sun. And it is equally true, with the help and guidance of the celestial agencies, the God-conscious mortal will certainly attain paradise and sometime stand in the personal presence of this majestic Son of Suns. Even though the Eternal Sun is the pattern of mortal personality attainment, you find it easier to grasp the reality of both the Father and the Spirit because the Father is the actual bestower of your human personality, and the Infinite Spirit is the absolute source of your mortal mind. But as you ascend in the paradise path of spiritual progression, the personality of the Eternal Son will become increasingly real to you, and the reality of his infinitely spiritual mind will become more discernible to your progressively spiritualizing mind. Never can the concept of the Eternal Son shine brightly in your material or subsequent morontial mind. Not until you spiritize and commence your spirit ascension will the comprehension of the personality of the Eternal Son begin to equal the vividness of your concept of the personality of the Creator Son of Paradise origin who, in person and as a person, one time incarnated and lived on Urantia as a man among men. Throughout your local universe experience, the Creator's Son, whose personality is comprehensible by man, must compensate for your inability to grasp the full significance of the more exclusively spiritual, but nonetheless personal, Eternal Son of Paradise. As you progress through Arvantan and Havona, as you leave behind you the vivid picture and deep memories of the Creator Son of your local universe, the passing of this material and Morontia experience will be compensated by ever-enlarging concepts and intensifying comprehension of the Eternal Son of Paradise, whose reality and nearness will ever augment as you progress paradiseward. The Eternal Son is a grand and glorious personality. Although it is beyond the powers of the mortal and material mind to grasp the actuality of the personality of such an infinite being, doubt not, he is a person. I know whereof I speak. Times almost without number I have stood in the divine presence of this Eternal Son, and then journeyed forth in the universe to execute his gracious bidding.
Indicted by a divine counselor assigned to formulate this statement depicting the Eternal Son of Paradise.
Paper 7. Relation of the Eternal Son to the Universe. The original Son is ever concerned with the execution of the spiritual aspects of the Father's eternal purpose as it progressively unfolds in the phenomena of the evolving universes with their manifold groups of living beings. We do not fully comprehend this eternal plan, but the Paradise Son undoubtedly does. The Son is like the Father in that he seeks to bestow everything possible of himself upon his coordinate sons and upon their subordinate sons. And the Son shares the Father's self-distributive nature in the unstinted bestowal of himself upon the Infinite Spirit, their conjoint executive. As the upholder of spirit realities, the second source and center is the eternal counterpoise of the Isle of Paradise, which so magnificently upholds all things material. Thus is the first source and center forever revealed in the material beauty of the exquisite patterns of the central isle and in the spiritual values of the supernal personality of the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son is the actual upholder of the vast creation of spirit realities and spiritual beings. The spirit world is the habit, the personal conduct of the Son, and the impersonal realities of spirit nature are always responsive to the will and purpose of the perfect personality of the Absolute Son. The Son is not, however, personally responsible for the conduct of all spirit personalities. The will of the personal creature is relatively free, and hence determines the actions of such volitional beings. Therefore, the free will spirit world is not always truly representative of the character of the Eternal Son, even as nature on Urantia is not truly revelatory of the perfection and immutability of paradise and deity. But no matter what may characterize the free will action of man or angel, the Son's eternal grasp of the universal gravity control of all spirit realities continues as absolute. 1. The Spirit Gravity Circuit. Everything taught concerning the immanence of God, His omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience, is equally true of the Son in the spiritual domains. The pure and universal spirit gravity of all creation, this exclusively spiritual circuit, leads directly back to the person of the second source and center on paradise. He presides over the control and operation of that ever-present and unerring spiritual grasp of all true spirit values. Thus does the Eternal Son exercise absolute spiritual sovereignty. He literally holds all spirit realities and all spiritualized values, as it were, in the hollow of his hand. The control of universal spiritual gravity is universal spiritual sovereignty. This gravity control of spiritual things operates independently of time and space. Therefore is spirit energy undiminished in transmission. Spirit gravity never suffers time delays, nor does it undergo space diminution. It does not decrease in accordance with the square of the distance of its transmission. The circuits of pure spirit power are not retarded by the mass of the material creation. And this transcendence of time and space by pure spirit energies is inherent in the absoluteness of the Son. It is not due to the interposition of the anti-gravity forces of the third source and center. Spirit realities respond to the drawing power of the center of spiritual gravity in accordance with their qualitative value, their actual degree of spirit nature. Spirit substance, quality, is just as responsive to spirit gravity as the organized energy of physical matter, quantity, is responsive to physical gravity. Spiritual values and spirit forces are real. From the viewpoint of personality, spirit is the soul of creation. Matter is the shadowy physical body. The reactions and fluctuations of spirit gravity are ever true to the content of spiritual values, the qualitative spiritual status of an individual or a world. This drawing power is instantly responsive to the inter- and intra-spirit values of any universe situation or planetary condition. Every time a spiritual reality actualizes in the universes, this change necessitates the immediate and instantaneous readjustment of spirit gravity. Such a new spirit is actually a part of the second source and center. And just as certainly as mortal man becomes a spiritized being, he will attain the spiritual Son, the center and source of spirit gravity. The Son's spiritual drawing power is inherent to a lesser degree in many paradise orders of sonship, for there do exist within the absolute spirit gravity circuit those local systems of spiritual attraction that function in the lesser units of creation. Such sub-absolute focalizations of spirit gravity are a part of the divinity of the creator personalities of time and space, and are correlated with the emerging experiential over-control of the Supreme Being. Spirit gravity pull and response thereto operate not only on the universe as a whole, but also even between individuals and groups of individuals. There is a spiritual cohesiveness among the spiritual and spiritized personalities of any world, race, nation, or believing group of individuals. There is a direct attractiveness of a spirit nature between spiritually minded persons of like tastes and longings. The term kindred spirits is not wholly a figure of speech. Like the material gravity of paradise, the spiritual gravity of the Eternal Son is absolute. Sin and rebellion may interfere with the operation of local universe circuits, but nothing can suspend the spirit gravity of the eternal Son. The Lucifer rebellion produced many changes in your system of inhabited worlds and on Urantia, but we do not observe that the resultant spiritual quarantine of your planet in the least affected the presence and function of either the omnipresent spirit of the eternal Son or the associated spirit gravity circuit. All reactions of the spirit gravity circuit of the grand universe are predictable. We recognize all actions and reactions of the omnipresent spirit of the eternal Son and find them to be dependable. In accordance with well-known laws, we can and do measure spiritual gravity just as man attempts to compute the workings of finite physical gravity. There is an unvarying response of the Son Spirit to all spirit things, beings, and persons, and this response is always in accordance with the degree of actuality, the qualitative degree of reality, of all such spiritual values. But alongside this very dependable and predictable function of the spiritual presence of the eternal Son, there are encountered phenomena which are not so predictable in their reactions. Such phenomena probably indicate the coordinate action of the deity absolute in the realms of emerging spiritual potentials. We know that the spirit presence of the eternal Son is the influence of a majestic and infinite personality, but we hardly regard the reactions associated with the conjectured performances of the deity absolute as personal. Viewed from the personality standpoint and by persons, the eternal Son and the deity absolute appear to be related in the following way. The eternal Son dominates the realm of actual spiritual values, whereas the deity absolute seems to pervade the vast domain of potential spirit values. All actual value of spirit nature finds lodgment in the gravity grasp of the eternal Son, but, if potential, then apparently in the presence of the deity absolute. Spirit seems to emerge from the potentials of the deity absolute. Evolving spirit finds correlation in the experiential and incomplete grasps of the supreme and the ultimate. Spirit eventually finds final destiny in the absolute grasp of the spiritual gravity of the eternal Son. This appears to be the cycle of experiential spirit, but existential spirit is inherent in the infinity of the second source and center. 2. The administration of the eternal Son. On Paradise, the presence and personal activity of the original Son is profound, absolute in the spiritual sense. As we pass outward from Paradise through Havona and into the realms of the 7 superuniverses, we detect less and less of the personal activity of the eternal Son. In the post-Havona universes, the presence of the eternal Son is personalized in the Paradise Sons, conditioned by the experiential realities of the supreme and the ultimate, and coordinated with the unlimited spirit potential of the deity absolute. In the central universe, the personal activity of the original Son is discernible in the exquisite spiritual harmony of the eternal creation. Havona is so marvelously perfect that the spiritual status and the energy states of this pattern universe are in perfect and perpetual balance. In the superuniverses, the Son is not personally present or resident. In these creations, he maintains only a superpersonal representation. These spirit manifestations of the Son are not personal. They are not in the personality circuit of the Universal Father. We know of no better term to use than to designate them superpersonalities, and they are finite beings. They are neither absonite nor absolute. The administration of the eternal Son in the superuniverses, being exclusively spiritual and superpersonal, is not discernible by creature personalities. Nonetheless, the all-pervading spiritual urge of the Son's personal influence is encountered in every phase of the activities of all sectors of the domains of the Ancients of Days. In the local universes, however, we observe the eternal Son personally present in the persons of the Paradise Sons. Here, the Infinite Son spiritually and creatively functions in the persons of the majestic core of the coordinate Creator Sons. 3. Relation of the Eternal Son to the individual. In the local universe ascent, the mortals of time look to the Creator Son as the personal representative of the Eternal Son. But when they begin the ascent of the super-universe training regime, the pilgrims of time increasingly detect the supernal presence of the inspiring spirit of the Eternal Son, and they are able to profit by the intake of this ministry of spiritual energization. In Havona, the ascenders become still more conscious of the loving embrace of the all-pervading spirit of the original Son. At no stage of the entire mortal ascension does the spirit of the Eternal Son indwell the mind or soul of the pilgrim of time, but his beneficence is ever near and always concerned with the welfare and spiritual security of the advancing children of time. The spiritual gravity pull of the Eternal Son constitutes the inherent secret of the paradise ascension of surviving human souls. All genuine spirit values and all bona fide spiritualized individuals are held within the unfailing grasp of the spiritual gravity of the Eternal Son. The mortal mind, for example, initiates its career as a material mechanism and is eventually mustered into the core of the finality as a well-nigh perfected spirit existence, becoming progressively less subject to material gravity and correspondingly more responsive to the inward pulling urge of spirit gravity during this entire experience. The spirit gravity circuit literally pulls the soul of man paradise-ward. The spirit gravity circuit is the basic channel for transmitting the genuine prayers of the believing human heart from the level of human consciousness to the actual consciousness of deity. That which represents true spiritual value in your petitions will be seized by the universal circuit of spirit gravity and will pass immediately and simultaneously to all divine personalities concerned. Each will occupy himself with that which belongs to his personal province. Therefore, in your practical religious experience, it is immaterial whether, in addressing your supplications, you visualize the Creator Son of your local universe or the Eternal Son at the center of all things. The discriminative operation of the spirit gravity circuit might possibly be compared to the functions of the neural circuits in the material human body. Sensations travel inward over the neural paths. Some are detained and responded to by the lower automatic spinal centers. Others pass on to the less automatic but habit-trained centers of the lower brain, while the most important and vital incoming messages flash by these subordinate centers and are immediately registered in the highest levels of human consciousness. But how much more perfect is the superb technique of the spiritual world? If anything originates in your consciousness that is fraught with supreme spiritual value, when once you give it expression, no power in the universe can prevent its flashing directly to the absolute spirit personality of all creation. Conversely, if your supplications are purely material and wholly self-centered, there exists no plan whereby such unworthy prayers can find lodgment in the spirit circuit of the Eternal Son. The content of any petition which is not spirit-indicted can find no place in the universal spiritual circuit. Such purely selfish and material requests fall dead. They do not ascend in the circuits of true spirit values. Such words are as sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. It is the motivating thought, the spiritual content, that validates the mortal supplication. Words are valueless. 4. The divine perfection plans. The Eternal Son is in everlasting liaison with the Father in the successful prosecution of the divine plan of progress. The universal plan for the creation, evolution, ascension, and perfection of will creatures. And in divine faithfulness, the Son is the eternal equal of the Father. The Father and His Son are as one in the formulation and prosecution of this gigantic attainment plan for advancing the material beings of time to the perfection of eternity. This project for the spiritual elevation of the ascendant souls of space is a joint creation of the Father and the Son, and they are, with the cooperation of the Infinite Spirit, engaged in associative execution of their divine purpose. This divine plan of perfection attainment embraces three unique, though marvelously correlated, enterprises of universal adventure. 1. The plan of progressive attainment. This is the Universal Father's plan of evolutionary ascension, a program unreservedly accepted by the Eternal Son when He concurred in the Father's proposal, "Let us make mortal creatures in our own image." This provision for upstepping the creatures of time involves the Father's bestowal of the thought adjusters and the endowing of material creatures with the prerogatives of personality. 2. The bestowal plan. The next universal plan is the great Father Revelation enterprise of the Eternal Son and His coordinate sons. This is the proposal of the Eternal Son, and consists of His bestowal of the sons of God upon the evolutionary creations, there to personalize and factualize, to incarnate and make real the love of the Father and the mercy of the Son to the creatures of all universes. Inherent in the bestowal plan, and as a provisional feature of this ministration of love, the Paradise Sons act as rehabilitators of that which misguided creature will has placed in spiritual jeopardy. Whenever and wherever there occurs a delay in the functioning of the attainment plan, if rebellion perchance should mar or complicate this enterprise, then do the emergency provisions of the bestowal plan become active forthwith. The Paradise Sons stand pledged and ready to function as retrievers, to go into the very realms of rebellion and there restore the spiritual status of the spheres. And such a heroic service a coordinate Creator Son did perform on Urantia in connection with his experiential bestowal career of sovereignty acquirement. 3. The plan of mercy ministry. When the attainment plan and the bestowal plan had been formulated and proclaimed, alone and of Himself the Infinite Spirit projected and put in operation the tremendous and universal enterprise of mercy ministry. This is the service so essential to the practical and effective operation of both the attainment and the bestowal undertakings, and the spiritual personalities of the third source and center all partake of the spirit of mercy ministry, which is so much a part of the nature of the third person of deity. Not only in creation, but also in administration, the Infinite Spirit functions truly and literally as the conjoint executive of the Father and the Son. The Eternal Son is the personal trustee, the divine custodian of the Father's universal plan of creature ascension. Having promulgated the universal mandate, "Be you perfect, even as I am perfect," the Father entrusted the execution of this tremendous undertaking to the Eternal Son, and the Eternal Son shares the fostering of this supernal enterprise with His divine coordinate, the Infinite Spirit. Thus do the deities effectively cooperate in the work of creation, control, evolution, revelation, and ministration, and, if required, in restoration and rehabilitation. 5. The Spirit of Bestowal. The Eternal Son, without reservation, joined with the Universal Father in broadcasting that tremendous injunction to all creation, "Be you perfect, even as your Father in Havona is perfect." And ever since, that invitation command has motivated all the survival plans and the bestowal projects of the Eternal Son and His vast family of coordinate and associated sons. And in these very bestowals the sons of God have become to all evolutionary creatures the way, the truth, and the life. The Eternal Son cannot contact directly with human beings as does the Father through the gift of the pre-personal thought adjusters, but the Eternal Son does draw near to created personalities by a series of downstepping gradations of divine sonship, until he is enabled to stand in man's presence and, at times, as man himself. The purely personal nature of the Eternal Son is incapable of fragmentation. The Eternal Son ministers as a spiritual influence or as a person, never otherwise. The Son finds it impossible to become a part of creature experience in the sense that the Father Adjuster participates therein, but the Eternal Son compensates this limitation by the technique of bestowal. What the experience of fragmented entities means to the Universal Father, the incarnation experiences of the Paradise Sons mean to the Eternal Son. The Eternal Son comes not to mortal man as the divine will, the thought adjuster indwelling the human mind, but the Eternal Son did come to mortal man on Urantia when the divine personality of his Son, Michael of Nebadon, incarnated in the human nature of Jesus of Nazareth. To share the experience of created personalities, the Paradise Sons of God must assume the very natures of such creatures and incarnate their divine personalities as the actual creatures themselves. Incarnation, the secret of Son Errington, is the technique of the Son's escape from the otherwise all-encompassing fetters of personality absolutism. Long, long ago, the Eternal Son bestowed himself upon each of the circuits of the central creation for the enlightenment and advancement of all the inhabitants and pilgrims of Havona, including the ascending pilgrims of time. On none of these 7 bestowals did he function as either an ascender or a Havoner. He existed as himself. His experience was unique. It was not with or as a human or other pilgrim, but in some way associative in the superpersonal sense. Neither did he pass through the rest that intervenes between the inner Havona circuit and the shores of paradise. It is not possible for him, an absolute being, to suspend consciousness of personality, for in him center all lines of spiritual gravity. And during the times of these bestowals, the central paradise lodgment of spiritual luminosity was undimmed, and the Son's grasp of universal spirit gravity was undiminished. The bestowals of the Eternal Son in Havona are not within the scope of human imagination. They were transcendental. He added, too, the experience of all Havona then and subsequently, but we do not know whether he added to the supposed experiential capacity of his existential nature. That would fall within the bestowal mystery of the Paradise Sons. We do, however, believe that whatever the Eternal Son acquired on these bestowal missions, he has ever since retained, but we do not know what it is. Whatever our difficulty in comprehending the bestowals of the second person of deity, we do comprehend the Havona bestowal of a son of the Eternal Son, who literally passed through the circuits of the central universe and actually shared those experiences which constitute an ascender's preparation for deity attainment. This was the original Michael, the firstborn Creator Son, and he passed through the life experiences of the ascending pilgrims from circuit to circuit, personally journeying a stage of each circle with them in the days of Grand Fanda, the first of all mortals to attain Havona. Whatever else this original Michael revealed, he made the transcendent bestowal of the original Mother-Son real to the creatures of Havona. So real that forevermore each pilgrim of time who labors in the adventure of making the Havona circuits is cheered and strengthened by the certain knowledge that the Eternal Son of God 7 times abdicated the power and glory of paradise to participate in the experiences of the time-space pilgrims on the 7 circuits of progressive Havona attainment. The Eternal Son is the exemplary inspiration for all the sons of God in their ministrations of bestowal throughout the universes of time and space. The coordinate Creator Sons and the associate Magisterial Sons, together with other unrevealed orders of sonship, all partake of this wonderful willingness to bestow themselves upon the varied orders of creature life, and as the creatures themselves. Therefore, in spirit, and because of kinship of nature as well as fact of origin, it becomes true that in the bestowal of each Son of God upon the worlds of space, in and through and by these bestowals, the Eternal Son has bestowed Himself upon the intelligent will creatures of the universes. In spirit and nature, if not in all attributes, each Paradise Son is a divinely perfect portraiture of the original Son. It is literally true, whosoever has seen a Paradise Son has seen the Eternal Son of God. 6. The Paradise Sons of God. The lack of a knowledge of the multiple sons of God is a source of great confusion on Urantia, and this ignorance persists in the face of such statements as the record of a conclave of these divine personalities, when the sons of God proclaimed joy and all of the morning stars sang together. Every millennium of sector standard time, the various orders of the divine sons foregather for their periodic conclaves. The Eternal Son is the personal source of the adorable attributes of mercy and service which so abundantly characterize all orders of the descending sons of God as they function throughout creation. All the divine nature, if not all the infinity of attributes, the Eternal Son unfailingly transmits to the Paradise Sons, who go out from the Eternal Isle to reveal His divine character to the universe of universes. The original and eternal Son is the offspring person of the first, completed, and infinite thought of the Universal Father. Every time the Universal Father and the Eternal Son jointly project a new, original, identical, unique, and absolute personal thought, that very instant this creative idea is perfectly and finally personalized in the being and personality of a new and original Creator Son. In spirit nature, divine wisdom, and coordinate creative power, these Creator Sons are potentially equal with God the Father and God the Son. The Creator Sons go out from paradise into the universes of time and, with the cooperation of the controlling and creative agencies of the third source and center, complete the organization of the local universes of progressive evolution. These sons are not attached to, nor are they concerned with, the central and universal controls of matter, mind, and spirit. Hence are they limited in their creative acts by the pre-existence, priority, and primacy of the first source and center and his coordinate absolutes. These sons are able to administer only that which they bring into existence. Absolute administration is inherent in priority of existence and is inseparable from eternity of presence. The Father remains primal in the universes. Much as the Creator Sons are personalized by the Father and the Son, so are the magisterial sons personalized by the Son and the Spirit. These are the sons who, in the experiences of creature incarnation, earn the right to serve as the judges of survival in the creations of time and space. The Father, Son, and Spirit also unite to personalize the versatile Trinity Teacher Sons, who range the grand universe as the supernal teachers of all personalities, human and divine. And there are numerous other orders of paradise sonship that have not been brought to the attention of Urantia mortals. Between the original Mother Sun and these hosts of paradise sons scattered throughout all creation, there is a direct and exclusive channel of communication, a channel whose function is inherent in the quality of spiritual kinship, which unites them in bonds of near-absolute spiritual association. This intersonship circuit is entirely different from the universal circuit of spirit gravity, which also centers in the person of the second source and center. All sons of God who take origin in the persons of the paradise deities are in direct and constant communication with the eternal Mother Sun. And such communication is instantaneous. It is independent of time, though sometimes conditioned by space. The Eternal Son not only has at all times perfect knowledge concerning the status, thoughts, and manifold activities of all orders of paradise sonship, but he also has perfection of knowledge at all times regarding everything of spiritual value which exists in the hearts of all creatures in the primary central creation of eternity and in the secondary time creations of the coordinate creator suns. 7. The supreme revelation of the Father. The eternal Son is a complete, exclusive, universal, and final revelation of the Spirit and the personality of the universal Father. All knowledge of and information concerning the Father must come from the eternal Son and his paradise sons. The eternal Son is from eternity, and is wholly and without spiritual qualification one with the Father. In divine personality they are coordinate. In spiritual nature they are equal. In divinity they are identical. The character of God could not possibly be intrinsically improved upon in the person of the Son, for the Divine Father is infinitely perfect. But that character and personality are amplified by divestment of the non-personal and non-spiritual, or revelation to creature beings. The first source and center is much more than a personality, but all of the spirit qualities of the Father personality of the first source and center are spiritually present in the absolute personality of the eternal Son. The primal Son and his sons are engaged in making a universal revelation of the spiritual and personal nature of the Father to all creation. In the central universe, the superuniverses, the local universes, or on the inhabited planets, it is a paradise Son who reveals the universal Father to men and angels. The eternal Son and his sons reveal the avenue of creature approach to the universal Father. And even we of high origin understand the Father much more fully as we study the revelation of his character and personality in the eternal Son and in the sons of the eternal Son. The Father comes down to you as a personality only through the divine sons of the eternal Son, and you attain the Father by this same living way. You ascend to the Father by the guidance of this group of divine sons, and this remains true notwithstanding that your very personality is a direct bestowal of the universal Father. In all these widespread activities of the far-flung spiritual administration of the eternal Son, do not forget that the Son is a person just as truly and actually as the Father is a person. Indeed, to beings of the one-time human order, the eternal Son will be more easy to approach than the universal Father. In the progress of the pilgrims of time through the circuits of Havona, you will be competent to attain the Son long before you are prepared to discern the Father. More of the character and merciful nature of the eternal Son of Mercy you should comprehend as you meditate on the revelation of these divine attributes, which was made in loving service by your own Creator Son, one-time Son of Man on earth, now the exalted sovereign of your local universe, the Son of Man and the Son of God.
Indicted by a divine counselor assigned to formulate this statement depicting the eternal Son of Paradise.
Paper 8. The Infinite Spirit. Back in eternity, when the Universal Father's first infinite and absolute thought finds in the eternal Son such a perfect and adequate word for its divine expression, there ensues the supreme desire of both the Thought God and the Word God for a universal and infinite agent of mutual expression and combined action. In the dawn of eternity, both the Father and the Son become infinitely cognizant of their mutual interdependence, their eternal and absolute oneness, and therefore do they enter into an infinite and everlasting covenant of divine partnership. This never-ending compact is made for the execution of their united concepts throughout all of the circle of eternity. And ever since this eternity event, the Father and the Son continue in this divine union. We are now face to face with the eternity origin of the infinite Spirit, the third person of deity. The very instant that God the Father and God the Son conjointly conceive an identical and infinite action, the execution of an absolute thought plan that very moment, the infinite Spirit springs full-fledgedly into existence. In thus reciting the order of the origin of the deities, I do so merely to enable you to think of their relationship. In reality, they are all three existent from eternity. They are existential. They are without beginning or ending of days. They are coordinate, supreme, ultimate, absolute, and infinite. They are and always have been and ever shall be. And they are three distinctly individualized but eternally associated persons: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. 1. The God of Action. In the eternity of the past, upon the personalization of the infinite Spirit, the divine personality cycle becomes perfect and complete. The God of Action is existent, and the vast stage of space is set for the stupendous drama of creation, the universal adventure, the divine panorama of the eternal ages. The first act of the infinite Spirit is the inspection and recognition of his divine parents, the Father, and the Mother-Son. He, the Spirit, unqualifiedly identifies both of them. He is fully cognizant of their separate personalities and infinite attributes, as well as of their combined nature and united function. Next, voluntarily, with transcendent willingness and inspiring spontaneity, the third person of deity, notwithstanding his equality with the first and second persons, pledges eternal loyalty to God the Father and acknowledges everlasting dependence upon God the Son. Inherent in the nature of this transaction and in mutual recognition of the personality independence of each and the executive union of all three, the cycle of eternity is established. The Paradise Trinity is existent. The stage of universal space is set for the manifold and never-ending panorama of the creative unfolding of the purpose of the Universal Father through the personality of the Eternal Son and by the execution of the God of Action, the executive agency for the reality performances of the Father-Son Creator partnership. The God of Action functions, and the dead vaults of space are astir. 1 billion perfect spheres flash into existence. Prior to this hypothetical eternity moment, the space energies inherent in paradise are existent and potentially operative, but they have no actuality of being. Neither can physical gravity be measured except by the reaction of material realities to its incessant pull. There is no material universe at this assumed eternally distant moment. But the very instant that 1 billion worlds materialize, there is in evidence gravity sufficient and adequate to hold them in the everlasting grasp of paradise. There now flashes through the creation of the gods the second form of energy, and this outflowing spirit is instantly grasped by the spiritual gravity of the Eternal Son. Thus, the twofold gravity-embraced universe is touched with the energy of infinity and immersed in the spirit of divinity. In this way is the soil of life prepared for the consciousness of mind made manifest in the associated intelligent circuits of the infinite spirit. Upon these seeds of potential existence, diffused throughout the central creation of the gods, the Father acts, and creature personality appears. Then does the presence of the paradise deities fill all organized space and begin effectively to draw all things and beings paradiseward. The infinite Spirit eternalizes concurrently with the birth of the Havona worlds, this central universe being created by Him and with Him and in Him, in obedience to the combined concepts and united wills of the Father and the Son. The third person deitizes by this very act of conjoint creation, and he thus forever becomes the conjoint creator. These are the grand and awful times of the creative expansion of the Father and the Son by and in the action of their conjoint associate and exclusive executive, the third source and center. There exists no record of these stirring times. We have only the meager disclosures of the infinite Spirit to substantiate these mighty transactions, and He merely verifies the fact that the central universe and all that pertains thereto eternalized simultaneously with His attainment of personality and conscious existence. In brief, the infinite Spirit testifies that since He is eternal, so also is the central universe eternal. And this is the traditional starting point of the history of the universe of universes. Absolutely nothing is known, and no records are in existence regarding any event or transaction prior to this stupendous eruption of creative energy and administrative wisdom that crystallized the vast universe which exists, and so exquisitely functions, at the center of all things. Beyond this event lie the unsearchable transactions of eternity and the depths of infinity, absolute mystery. And we thus portray the sequential origin of the third source and center as an interpretive condescension to the time-bound and space-conditioned mind of mortal creatures. The mind of man must have a starting point for the visualization of universe history, and I have been directed to provide this technique of approach to the historic concept of eternity. In the material mind, consistency demands a first cause. Therefore do we postulate the universal Father as the first source and the absolute center of all creation, at the same time instructing all creature minds that the Son and the Spirit are co-eternal with the Father in all phases of universe history and in all realms of creative activity. And we do this without in any sense being disregardful of the reality and eternity of the Isle of Paradise and of the unqualified, universal, and deity absolutes. It is enough of a reach of the material mind of the children of time to conceive of the Father in eternity. We know that any child can best relate himself to reality by first mastering the relationships of the child-parent situation, and then by enlarging this concept to embrace the family as a whole. Subsequently, the growing mind of the child will be able to adjust to the concept of family relations, to relationships of the community, the race, and the world, and then to those of the universe, the super-universe, even the universe of universes. 2. Nature of the Infinite Spirit. The conjoint Creator is from eternity, and is wholly and without qualification one with the universal Father and the eternal Son. The Infinite Spirit reflects in perfection not only the nature of the Paradise Father, but also the nature of the original Son. The third source and center is known by numerous titles: the Universal Spirit, the Supreme Guide, the Conjoint Creator, the Divine Executive, the Infinite Mind, the Spirit of Spirits, the Paradise Mother Spirit, the Conjoint Actor, the Final Coordinator, the Omnipresent Spirit, the Absolute Intelligence, the Divine Action. And on Urantia, he is sometimes confused with the Cosmic Mind. It is altogether proper to denominate the third person of deity, the infinite Spirit, for God is Spirit. But material creatures who tend towards the error of viewing matter as basic reality, and mind together with spirit as postulates rooted in matter, would better comprehend the third source and center if he were called the infinite reality, the universal organizer, or the personality coordinator. The infinite Spirit, as a universe revelation of divinity, is unsearchable and utterly beyond human comprehension. To sense the absoluteness of the Spirit, you need only contemplate the infinity of the Universal Father and stand in awe of the eternity of the original Son. There is mystery indeed in the person of the infinite Spirit, but not so much as in the Father and the Son. Of all aspects of the Father's nature, the conjoint Creator most strikingly discloses His infinity. Even if the master universe eventually expands to infinity, the spirit presence, energy control, and mind potential of the conjoint actor will be found adequate to meet the demands of such a limitless creation. Though in every way sharing the perfection, the righteousness, and the love of the universal Father, the infinite Spirit inclines towards the mercy attributes of the eternal Son, thus becoming the mercy minister of the paradise deities to the grand universe. Ever and always, universally and eternally, the Spirit is a mercy minister, for, as the divine sons reveal the love of God, so the divine Spirit depicts the mercy of God. It is not possible that the Spirit could have more of goodness than the Father, since all goodness takes origin in the Father. But in the acts of the Spirit, we can the better comprehend such goodness. The Father's faithfulness and the Son's constancy are made very real to the spirit beings and the material creatures of the spheres by the loving ministry and ceaseless service of the personalities of the infinite Spirit. The conjoint Creator inherits all the Father's beauty of thought and character of truth, and these sublime traits of divinity are coordinated in the near supreme levels of the cosmic mind in subordination to the infinite and eternal wisdom of the unconditioned and limitless mind of the third source and center. 3. Relation of the Spirit to the Father and the Son. As the eternal Son is the word expression of the first absolute and infinite thought of the universal Father, so the conjoint actor is the perfect execution of the first completed creative concept or plan for combined action by the Father-Son personality partnership of absolute thought-word union. The third source and center eternalizes concurrently with the central or fiat creation, and only this central creation is eternal in existence among universes. Since the personalization of the third source, the first source no more personally participates in universe creation. The universal Father delegates everything possible to His eternal Son. Likewise does the eternal Son bestow all possible authority and power upon the conjoint Creator. The eternal Son and the conjoint Creator have, as partners, and through their coordinate personalities, planned and fashioned every post-Havona universe which has been brought into existence. The Spirit sustains the same personal relation to the Son in all subsequent creation that the Son sustains to the Father in the first and central creation. A Creator Son of the Eternal Son and a creative Spirit of the Infinite Spirit created you and your universe. And while the Father in faithfulness upholds that which they have organized, it devolves upon this universe Son and this universe Spirit to foster and sustain their work as well as to minister to the creatures of their own making. The Infinite Spirit is the effective agent of the all-loving Father and the all-merciful Son for the execution of their conjoint project of drawing to themselves all truth-loving souls on all the worlds of time and space. The very instant the Eternal Son accepted His Father's plan of perfection attainment for the creatures of the universes, the moment the Ascension Project became a Father-Son plan, that instant the Infinite Spirit became the conjoint administrator of the Father and the Son for the execution of their united and eternal purpose. And in so doing, the Infinite Spirit pledged all His resources of divine presence and of spirit personalities to the Father and the Son. He has dedicated all to the stupendous plan of exalting surviving will creatures to the divine heights of paradise perfection. The Infinite Spirit is a complete, exclusive, and universal revelation of the universal Father and His eternal Son. All knowledge of the Father-Son partnership must be had through the Infinite Spirit, the conjoint representative of the divine thought-word union. The Eternal Son is the only avenue of approach to the Universal Father, and the Infinite Spirit is the only means of attaining the Eternal Son. Only by the patient ministry of the Spirit are the ascendant beings of time able to discover the Son. At the center of all things, the Infinite Spirit is the first of the paradise deities to be attained by the ascending pilgrims. The third person enshrouds the second and the first persons, and therefore must always be first recognized by all who are candidates for presentation to the Son and His Father. And in many other ways does the Spirit equally represent and similarly serve the Father and the Son. 4. The Spirit of Divine Ministry. Paralleling the physical universe, wherein paradise gravity holds all things together, is the spiritual universe, wherein the Word of the Son interprets the thought of God, and when made flesh, demonstrates the loving mercy of the combined nature of the associated creators. But in and through all this material and spiritual creation, there is a vast stage whereon the Infinite Spirit and His Spirit offspring show forth the combined mercy, patience, and everlasting affection of the divine parents towards the intelligent children of their cooperative devising and making. Everlasting ministry to mind is the essence of the Spirit's divine character, and all the Spirit offspring of the conjoint actor partake of this desire to minister, this divine urge to service. God is love, the Son is mercy, the Spirit is ministry, the ministry of divine love and endless mercy to all intelligent creation. The Spirit is the personification of the Father's love and the Son's mercy. In Him are they eternally united for universal service. The Spirit is love applied to the creature creation, the combined love of the Father and the Son. On Urantia, the Infinite Spirit is known as an omnipresent influence, a universal presence. But in Havona you shall know Him as a personal presence of actual ministry. Here the ministry of the Paradise Spirit is the exemplary and inspiring pattern for each of His coordinate spirits and subordinate personalities, ministering to the created beings on the worlds of time and space. In this divine universe, the Infinite Spirit fully participated in the 7 transcendental appearances of the Eternal Son, Likewise did he participate with the original Michael Son in the 7 bestowals upon the circuits of Havona, thereby becoming the sympathetic and understanding spirit minister to every pilgrim of time traversing these perfect circles on high. When a Creator Son of God accepts the creatorship charge of responsibility for a projected local universe, the personalities of the infinite Spirit pledge themselves as the tireless ministers of this Michael Son when he goes forth on his mission of creative adventure. Especially in the persons of the creative daughters, the local universe mother spirits, do we find the infinite Spirit devoted to the task of fostering the ascension of the material creatures to higher and higher levels of spiritual attainment. And all this work of creature ministry is done in perfect harmony with the purposes and in close association with the personalities of the Creator Sons of these local universes. As the sons of God are engaged in the gigantic task of revealing the Father's personality of love to a universe, so is the infinite Spirit dedicated to the unending ministry of revealing the combined love of the Father and the Son to the individual minds of all the children of each universe. In these local creations, the Spirit does not come down to the material races in the likeness of mortal flesh, as do certain of the sons of God. But the infinite Spirit and His coordinate spirits do downstep themselves, do joyfully undergo an amazing series of divinity attenuations, until they appear as angels to stand by your side and guide you through the lowly paths of earthly existence. By this very diminishing series, the infinite Spirit does actually, and as a person, draw very near to every being of the animal origin spheres. And all this the Spirit does without in the least invalidating His existence as the third person of deity at the center of all things. The conjoint Creator is truly, and forever, the great ministering personality, the universal mercy minister. To comprehend the ministry of the Spirit, ponder the truth that He is the combined portrayal of the Father's unending love and of the Son's eternal mercy. The Spirit's ministry is not, however, restricted solely to the representation of the eternal Son and the universal Father. The infinite Spirit also possesses the power to minister to the creatures of the realm in His own name and right. The third person is of divine dignity and also bestows the universal ministry of mercy in His own behalf. As man learns more of the loving and tireless ministry of the lower orders of the creature family of this infinite Spirit, he will all the more admire and adore the transcendent nature and matchless character of this combined action of the universal Father and the eternal Son. Indeed is this Spirit the eyes of the Lord, which are ever over the righteous, and the divine ears, which are ever open to their prayers. 5. The presence of God. The outstanding attribute of the infinite Spirit is omnipresence. Throughout all the universe of universes, there is everywhere present this all-pervading Spirit, which is so akin to the presence of a universal and divine mind. Both the second person and the third person of deity are represented on all worlds by their ever-present spirits. The Father is infinite and is therefore limited only by volition. In the bestowal of adjusters and in the encircuitment of personality, the Father acts alone, but in the contact of spirit forces with intelligent beings, He utilizes the spirits and personalities of the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit. He is at will spiritually present equally with the Son or with the conjoint actor. He is present with the Son and in the Spirit. The Father is most certainly everywhere present, and we discern His presence by and through any and all of these diverse but associated forces, influences, and presences. In your sacred writings, the term Spirit of God seems to be used interchangeably to designate both the infinite Spirit on Paradise and the creative Spirit of your local universe. The Holy Spirit is the spiritual circuit of this creative daughter of the Paradise Infinite Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a circuit indigenous to each local universe and is confined to the spiritual realm of that creation. But the Infinite Spirit is omnipresent. There are many spiritual influences, and they are all as one. Even the work of the thought adjusters, though independent of all other influences, unvaryingly coincides with the Spirit ministry of the combined influences of the Infinite Spirit and a local universe Mother Spirit. As these spiritual presences operate in the lives of Urantians, they cannot be segregated. In your minds and upon your souls, they function as one Spirit, notwithstanding their diverse origins. And as this united spiritual ministration is experienced, it becomes to you the influence of the Supreme, who is ever able to keep you from failing and to present you blameless before your Father on high. Ever remember that the Infinite Spirit is the conjoint actor. Both the Father and the Son are functioning in and through Him. He is present not only as Himself, but also as the Father and as the Son and as the Father-Son. In recognition of this, and for many additional reasons, the Spirit presence of the Infinite Spirit is often referred to as the Spirit of God. It would also be consistent to refer to the liaison of all spiritual ministry as the Spirit of God. For such a liaison is truly the union of the spirits of God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, and God the Sevenfold, even the Spirit of God the Supreme. 6. Personality of the Infinite Spirit. Do not allow the widespread bestowal and the far-flung distribution of the third source and center to obscure or otherwise detract from the fact of His personality. The Infinite Spirit is a universe presence, an eternal action, a cosmic power, a holy influence, and a universal mind. He is all of these and infinitely more. But He is also a true and divine personality. The Infinite Spirit is a complete and perfect personality, the divine equal and coordinate of the universal Father and the eternal Son. The conjoint Creator is just as real and visible to the higher intelligences of the universes as are the Father and the Son, indeed more so, for it is the Spirit whom all ascenders must attain before they may approach the Father through the Son. The Infinite Spirit, the third person of Deity, is possessed of all the attributes which you associate with personality. The Spirit is endowed with absolute mind. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. The Spirit is endowed not only with mind, but also with will. In the bestowal of His gifts it is recorded, "But all these works that one and the selfsame Spirit, dividing to every man severally and as he wills." The love of the Spirit is real, as also are His sorrows. Therefore, grieve not the Spirit of God. Whether we observe the Infinite Spirit as Paradise Deity or as a local universe creative Spirit, we find that the conjoint Creator is not only the third source and center, but also a divine person. This divine personality also reacts to the universe as a person. The Spirit speaks to you. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says. The Spirit Himself makes intercession for you. The Spirit exerts a direct and personal influence upon created beings. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Even though we behold the phenomenon of the ministry of the infinite Spirit to the remote worlds of the universe of universes, even though we envisage this same coordinating deity acting in and through the untold legions of the manifold beings who take origin in the third source and center, even though we recognize the omnipresence of the Spirit, nonetheless, we still affirm that this same third source and center is a person, the conjoint creator of all things and all beings and all universes. In the administration of universes, the Father, Son, and Spirit are perfectly and eternally interassociated. Though each is engaged in a personal ministry to all creation, all three are divinely and absolutely interlocked in a service of creation and control which forever makes them one. In the person of the infinite Spirit, the Father and the Son are mutually present, always and in unqualified perfection, for the Spirit is like the Father and like the Son, and also like the Father and the Son, as they too are forever one.
Presented on Urantia by a divine counselor of Uversa, commissioned by the Ancients of Days to portray the nature and work of the infinite Spirit.
Paper 9. Relation of the Infinite Spirit to the Universe. A strange thing occurred when, in the presence of Paradise, the Universal Father and the Eternal Son unite to personalize themselves. Nothing in this eternity situation foreshadows that the conjoint actor would personalize as an unlimited spirituality, coordinated with absolute mind and endowed with unique prerogatives of energy manipulation. His coming into being completes the Father's liberation from the bonds of centralized perfection and from the fetters of personality absolutism. And this liberation is disclosed in the amazing power of the conjoint Creator to create beings well adapted to serve as ministering spirits, even to the material creatures of the subsequently evolving universes. The Father is infinite in love and volition, in spiritual thought and purpose. He is the universal upholder. The Son is infinite in wisdom and truth, in spiritual expression and interpretation. He is the universal revealer. Paradise is infinite in potential for force endowment and in capacity for energy dominance. It is the universal stabilizer. The conjoint actor possesses unique prerogatives of synthesis, infinite capacity to coordinate all existing universe energies, all actual universe spirits, and all real universe intellects. The third source and center is the universal unifier of the manifold energies and diverse creations which have appeared in consequence of the divine plan and the eternal purpose of the universal Father. The infinite Spirit, the conjoint Creator, is a universal and divine minister. The Spirit unceasingly ministers the Son's mercy and the Father's love, even in harmony with the stable, unvarying, and righteous justice of the Paradise Trinity. His influence and personalities are ever near you. They really know and truly understand you. Throughout the universes, the agencies of the conjoint actor ceaselessly manipulate the forces and energies of all space. Like the first source and center, the third is responsive to both the spiritual and the material. The conjoint actor is the revelation of the unity of God in whom all things consist, things, meanings and values, energies, minds, and spirits. The infinite Spirit pervades all space, He indwells the circle of eternity, and the Spirit, like the Father and the Son, is perfect and changeless, absolute. 1. Attributes of the third source and center. The third source and center is known by many names, all designative of relationship and in recognition of function. As God the Spirit, He is the personality coordinate and divine equal of God the Son and God the Father. As the infinite Spirit, He is an omnipresent spiritual influence. As the universal manipulator, He is the ancestor of the power control creatures and the activator of the cosmic forces of space. As the conjoint actor, He is the joint representative and partnership executive of the Father-Son. As the absolute mind, He is the source of the endowment of intellect throughout the universes. As the God of action, He is the apparent ancestor of motion, change, and relationship. Some of the attributes of the third source and center are derived from the Father, some from the Son, while still others are not observed to be actively and personally present in either the Father or the Son. Attributes that can hardly be explained except by assuming that the Father-Son partnership, which eternalizes the third source and center, consistently functions in consonance with and in recognition of the eternal fact of the absoluteness of paradise. The conjoint Creator embodies the fullness of the combined and infinite concepts of the first and second persons of deity. While you envisage the Father as an original Creator and the Son as a spiritual administrator, you should think of the third source and center as a universal coordinator, a minister of unlimited cooperation. The conjoint actor is the correlator of all actual reality. He is the deity repository of the Father's thought and the Son's word, and in action is eternally regardful of the material absoluteness of the central aisle. The Paradise Trinity has ordained the universal order of progress, and the providence of God is the domain of the conjoint Creator and the evolving Supreme Being. No actual or actualizing reality can escape eventual relationship with the third source and center. The Universal Father presides over the realms of pre-energy, pre-spirit, and personality. The Eternal Son dominates the spheres of spiritual activities. The presence of the Isle of Paradise unifies the domain of physical energy and materializing power. The conjoint actor operates not only as an infinite spirit representing the Son, but also as a universal manipulator of the forces and energies of paradise, thus bringing into existence the universal and absolute mind. The conjoint actor functions throughout the grand universe as a positive and distinct personality, especially in the higher spheres of spiritual values, physical energy relationships, and true mind meanings. He functions specifically wherever and whenever energy and spirit associate and interact. He dominates all reactions with mind, wields great power in the spiritual world, and exerts a mighty influence over energy and matter. At all times, the third source is expressive of the nature of the first source and center. The third source and center, perfectly and without qualification, shares the omnipresence of the first source and center, sometimes being called the omnipresent Spirit. In a peculiar and very personal manner, the God of mind shares the omniscience of the universal Father and His eternal Son. The knowledge of the Spirit is profound and complete. The conjoint Creator manifests certain phases of the omnipotence of the universal Father, but is actually omnipotent only in the domain of mind. The third person of deity is the intellectual center and the universal administrator of the mind realms. Herein is He absolute. His sovereignty is unqualified. The conjoint actor seems to be motivated by the Father-Son partnership, but all his actions appear to recognize the Father-Paradise relationship. At times and in certain functions he seems to compensate for the incompleteness of the development of the experiential deities, God the Supreme and God the Ultimate. and herein is an infinite mystery. That the infinite simultaneously revealed his infinity in the Son and as paradise. And then there springs into existence a being equal to God in divinity, reflective of the Son's spiritual nature and capable of activating the paradise pattern, a being provisionally subordinate in sovereignty, but in many ways apparently the most versatile in action. And such apparent superiority in action is disclosed in an attribute of the third source and center, which is superior even to physical gravity, the universal manifestation of the Isle of Paradise. In addition to this super-control of energy and things physical, the infinite spirit is superbly endowed with those attributes of patience, mercy, and love which are so exquisitely revealed in his spiritual ministry. The Spirit is supremely competent to minister love and to overshadow justice with mercy. God the Spirit possesses all the supernal kindness and merciful affection of the original and eternal Son. The universe of your origin is being forged out between the anvil of justice and the hammer of suffering, but those who wield the hammer are the children of mercy, the spirit offspring of the infinite Spirit. 2. The omnipresent Spirit. God is Spirit in a threefold sense. He himself is Spirit. In his Son he appears as Spirit without qualification. In the conjoint actor as Spirit allied with mind. And in addition to these spiritual realities, we think we discern levels of experiential spirit phenomena, the spirits of the Supreme Being, ultimate deity, and deity absolute. The infinite Spirit is just as much a complement of the eternal Son as the Son is a complement of the universal Father. The eternal Son is a spiritualized personalization of the Father. The infinite Spirit is a personalized spiritualization of the eternal Son and the universal Father. There are many untrammeled lines of spiritual force and sources of supermaterial power linking the people of Urantia directly with the deities of paradise. There exists the connection of the thought adjusters direct with the universal Father, the widespread influence of the spiritual gravity urge of the eternal Son, and the spiritual presence of the conjoint Creator. There is a difference in function between the Spirit of the Son and the Spirit of the Spirit. The third person in his spiritual ministry may function as mind plus spirit or as spirit alone. In addition to these paradise presences, Urantians benefit by the spiritual influences and activities of the local and the super-universe, with their almost endless array of loving personalities who ever lead the true of purpose and the honest of heart upward and inward towards the ideals of divinity and the goal of supreme perfection. The presence of the universal Spirit of the eternal Son we know. We can unmistakably recognize it. The presence of the infinite Spirit, the third person of deity, even mortal man may know, for material creatures can actually experience the beneficence of this divine influence, which functions as the Holy Spirit of local universe bestowal upon the races of mankind. Human beings can also, in some degree, become conscious of the adjuster, the impersonal presence of the universal Father. These divine spirits which work for man's uplifting and spiritualization all act in unison and in perfect cooperation. They are as one in the spiritual operation of the plans of mortal ascension and perfection attainment. 3. The Universal Manipulator. The Isle of Paradise is the source and substance of physical gravity, and that should be sufficient to inform you that gravity is one of the most real and eternally dependable things in the whole physical universe of universes. Gravity cannot be modified or annulled except by the forces and energies conjointly sponsored by the Father and the Son, which have been entrusted to and are functionally associated with the person of the third source and center. The infinite Spirit possesses a unique and amazing power, anti-gravity. This power is not functionally, observably present in either the Father or the Son. This ability to withstand the pull of material gravity inherent in the third source is revealed in the personal reactions of the conjoint actor to certain phases of universe relationships. And this unique attribute is transmissible to certain of the higher personalities of the infinite spirit. Anti-gravity can annul gravity within a local frame. It does so by the exercise of equal force presence. It operates only with reference to material gravity, and it is not the action of mind. The gravity-resistant phenomenon of a gyroscope is a fair illustration of the effect of anti-gravity, but of no value to illustrate the cause of anti-gravity. Still further does the conjoint actor display powers which can transcend force and neutralize energy. Such powers operate by slowing down energy to the point of materialization and by other techniques unknown to you. The conjoint creator is not energy, nor the source of energy, nor the destiny of energy. He is the manipulator of energy. The conjoint creator is action, motion, change, modification, coordination, stabilization, and equilibrium. The energies subject to the direct or indirect control of Paradise are by nature responsive to the acts of the third source and center and his manifold agencies. The universe of universes is permeated by the power control creatures of the third source and center. Physical controllers, power directors, power centers, and other representatives of the God of Action who have to do with the regulation and stabilization of physical energies. These unique creatures of physical function all possess varying attributes of power control, such as anti-gravity, which they utilize in their efforts to establish the physical equilibrium of the matter and energies of the grand universe. All these material activities of the God of Action appear to relate his function to the Isle of Paradise, and indeed the agencies of power are all regardful of, even dependent on, the absoluteness of the eternal Isle. But the conjoint actor does not act for or in response to Paradise. He acts personally for the Father and the Son. Paradise is not a person. The non-personal, impersonal, and otherwise not personal doings of the third source and center are all volitional acts of the conjoint actor himself. They are not reflections, derivations, or repercussions of anything or anybody. Paradise is the pattern of infinity. The God of Action is the activator of that pattern. Paradise is the material fulcrum of infinity. The agencies of the third source and center are the levers of intelligence which motivate the material level and inject spontaneity into the mechanism of the physical creation. 4. The Absolute Mind. There is an intellectual nature of the third source and center that is distinct from his physical and spiritual attributes. Such a nature is hardly contactable, but it is associable, intellectually though not personally. It is distinguishable from the physical attributes and the spiritual character of the third person on mind levels of function, but to the discernment of personalities, this nature never functions independently of physical or spiritual manifestations. The absolute mind is the mind of the third person. It is inseparable from the personality of God the Spirit. Mind in functioning beings is not separated from energy or spirit or both. Mind is not inherent in energy. Energy is receptive and responsive to mind. Mind can be superimposed upon energy, but consciousness is not inherent in the purely material level. Mind does not have to be added to pure spirit, for spirit is innately conscious and identifying. Spirit is always intelligent, minded in some way. It may be this mind or that mind. It may be pre-mind or supermind, even spirit mind. But it does the equivalent of thinking and knowing. The insight of spirit transcends, supervenes, and theoretically antedates the consciousness of mind. The conjoint creator is absolute only in the domain of mind, in the realms of universal intelligence. The mind of the third source and center is infinite. It utterly transcends the active and functioning mind circuits of the universe of universes. The mind endowment of the 7 superuniverses is derived from the 7 master spirits, the primary personalities of the conjoint creator. These master spirits distribute mind to the grand universe as the cosmic mind, and your local universe is pervaded by the Nebadon variant of the Orvanton type of cosmic mind. Infinite mind ignores time. Ultimate mind transcends time. Cosmic mind is conditioned by time. And so with space. The infinite mind is independent of space, but as descent is made from the infinite to the adjutant levels of mind, intellect must increasingly reckon with the fact and limitations of space. Cosmic force responds to mind even as cosmic mind responds to spirit. Spirit is divine purpose, and spirit mind is divine purpose in action. Energy is thing, mind is meaning, spirit is value. Even in time and space, mind establishes those relative relationships between energy and spirit which are suggestive of mutual kinship in eternity. Mind transmutes the values of spirit into the meanings of intellect. Volition has power to bring the meanings of mind to fruit in both the material and spiritual domains. The Paradise Ascent involves a relative and differential growth in spirit, mind, and energy. The personality is the unifier of these components of experiential individuality. 5. The ministry of mind. The third source and center is infinite in mind. If the universe should grow to infinity, still his mind potential would be adequate to endow limitless numbers of creatures with suitable minds and other prerequisites of intellect. In the domain of created mind, the third person with his coordinate and subordinate associates rules supreme. The realms of creature mind are of exclusive origin in the third source and center. He is the bestower of mind. Even the father fragments find it impossible to indwell the minds of men until the way has been properly prepared for them by the mind action and spiritual function of the infinite spirit. The unique feature of mind is that it can be bestowed upon such a wide range of life. Through his creative and creature associates, the third source and center ministers to all minds on all spheres. He ministers to human and subhuman intellect through the adjutants of the local universes, and through the agency of the physical controllers, ministers even to the lowest non-experiencing entities of the most primitive types of living things. And always is the direction of mind a ministry of mind-spirit, or mind-energy personalities. Since the third person of deity is the source of mind, it is quite natural that the evolutionary will creatures find it easier to form comprehensible concepts of the infinite spirit than they do of either the eternal Son or the universal Father. The reality of the conjoint creator is disclosed imperfectly in the very existence of human mind. The conjoint creator is the ancestor of the cosmic mind, and the mind of man is an individualized circuit, an impersonal portion of that cosmic mind as it is bestowed in a local universe by a creative daughter of the third source and center. Because the third person is the source of mind, do not presume to reckon that all phenomena of mind are divine. Human intellect is rooted in the material origin of the animal races. Universe intelligence is no more a true revelation of God, who is mind, than is physical nature a true revelation of the beauty and harmony of paradise. Perfection is in nature, but nature is not perfect. The conjoint creator is the source of mind, but mind is not the conjoint creator. Mind on Urantia is a compromise between the essence of thought perfection and the evolving mentality of your immature human nature. The plan for your intellectual evolution is indeed one of sublime perfection, but you are far short of that divine goal as you function in the tabernacles of the flesh. Mind is truly of divine origin, and it does have a divine destiny, but your mortal minds are not yet of divine dignity. Too often, all too often, you mar your minds by insincerity and sear them with unrighteousness. You subject them to animal fear and distort them by useless anxiety. Therefore, though the source of mind is divine, mind as you know it on your world of ascension can hardly become the object of great admiration, much less of adoration or worship. The contemplation of the immature and inactive human intellect should lead only to reactions of humility. 6. The mind-gravity circuit. The third source and center, the universal intelligence, is personally conscious of every mind, every intellect in all creation, and he maintains a personal and perfect contact with all these physical, morontial, and spiritual creatures of mind endowment in the far-flung universes. All these activities of mind are grasped in the absolute mind-gravity circuit, which focalizes in the third source and center, and is a part of the personal consciousness of the infinite spirit. Much as the Father draws all personality to himself, and as the Son attracts all spiritual reality, so does the conjoint actor exercise a drawing power on all minds. He unqualifiedly dominates and controls the universal mind circuit. All true and genuine intellectual values, all divine thoughts and perfect ideas are unerringly drawn into this absolute circuit of mind. Mind gravity can operate independently of material and spiritual gravity, but wherever and whenever the latter two impinge, mind gravity always functions. When all three are associated, personality gravity may embrace the material creature, physical or morontial, finite or absonite. But irrespective of this, the endowment of mind, even in impersonal beings, qualifies them to think, and endows them with consciousness despite the total absence of personality. Selfhood of personality dignity, human or divine, immortal or potentially immortal, does not, however, originate in either spirit, mind, or matter. It is the bestowal of the Universal Father. Neither is the interaction of spirit, mind, and material gravity a prerequisite to the appearance of personality gravity. The Father's circuit may embrace a mind-material being who is unresponsive to spirit gravity, or it may include a mind-spirit being who is unresponsive to material gravity. The operation of personality gravity is always a volitional act of the Universal Father. While mind is energy associated in purely material beings, and spirit associated in purely spiritual personalities, innumerable orders of personality, including the human, possess minds that are associated with both energy and spirit. The spiritual aspects of creature mind unfailingly respond to the spirit gravity pull of the eternal Son. The material features respond to the gravity urge of the material universe. Cosmic mind, when not associated with either energy or spirit, is subject to the gravity demands of neither material nor spiritual circuits. Pure mind is subject only to the universal gravity grasp of the conjoint actor. Pure mind is close of kin to infinite mind, and infinite mind, the theoretical coordinate of the absolutes of spirit and energy, is apparently a law in itself. The greater the spirit-energy divergence, the greater the observable function of mind. The lesser the diversity of energy and spirit, the lesser the observable function of mind. Apparently, the maximum function of the cosmic mind is in the time universes of space. Here, mind seems to function in a mid-zone between energy and spirit. But this is not true of the higher levels of mind. On Paradise, energy and spirit are essentially one. The mind-gravity circuit is dependable. It emanates from the third person of deity on Paradise. But not all the observable function of mind is predictable. Throughout all known creation, there parallels this circuit of mind some little understood presence whose function is not predictable. We believe that this unpredictability is partly attributable to the function of the universal absolute. What this function is, we do not know. What actuates it we can only conjecture. Concerning its relation to creatures, we can only speculate. Certain phases of the unpredictability of finite mind may be due to the incompleteness of the Supreme Being, and there is a vast zone of activities wherein the conjoint actor and the universal absolute may possibly be tangent. There is much about mind that is unknown, but of this we are sure. The infinite spirit is the perfect expression of the mind of the Creator to all creatures. The Supreme Being is the evolving expression of the minds of all creatures to their Creator. 7. Universe reflectivity. The conjoint actor is able to coordinate all levels of universe actuality in such manner as to make possible the simultaneous recognition of the mental, the material, and the spiritual. This is the phenomenon of universe reflectivity, that unique and inexplicable power to see, hear, sense, and know all things as they transpire throughout a superuniverse, and to focalize by reflectivity all this information and knowledge at any desired point. The action of reflectivity is shown in perfection on each of the headquarters worlds of the 7 superuniverses. It is also operative throughout all sectors of the superuniverses and within the boundaries of the local universes. Reflectivity finally focalizes on Paradise. The phenomenon of reflectivity, as it is disclosed on the superuniverse headquarters worlds, in the amazing performances of the reflective personalities there stationed, represents the most complex interassociation of all phases of existence to be found in all creation. Lines of spirit can be traced back to the sun, physical energy to Paradise, and mind to the third source. But in the extraordinary phenomenon of universe reflectivity, there is a unique and exceptional unification of all three, so associated as to enable the universe rulers to know about remote conditions instantaneously, simultaneously with their occurrence. Much of the technique of reflectivity we comprehend, but there are many phases which truly baffle us. We know that the conjoint actor is the universe center of the mind circuit, that he is the ancestor of the cosmic mind, and that cosmic mind operates under the dominance of the absolute mind gravity of the third source and center. We know further that the circuits of the cosmic mind influence the intellectual levels of all known existence. They contain the universal space reports, and just as certainly they focus in the 7 master spirits and converge in the third source and center. The relationship between the finite cosmic mind and the divine absolute mind appears to be evolving in the experiential mind of the Supreme. We are taught that in the dawn of time, this experiential mind was bestowed upon the Supreme by the Infinite Spirit, and we conjecture that certain features of the phenomenon of reflectivity can be accounted for only by postulating the activity of the Supreme Mind. If the Supreme is not concerned in reflectivity, we are at a loss to explain the intricate transactions and unerring operations of this consciousness of the cosmos. Reflectivity appears to be omniscience within the limits of the experiential finite, and may represent the emergence of the presence consciousness of the Supreme Being. If this assumption is true, then the utilization of reflectivity in any of its phases is equivalent to partial contact with the consciousness of the Supreme. 8. Personalities of the Infinite Spirit. The Infinite Spirit possesses full power to transmit many of His powers and prerogatives to His coordinate and subordinate personalities and agencies. The first deity-creating act of the Infinite Spirit, functioning apart from the Trinity but in some unrevealed association with the Father and the Son, personalized in the existence of the 7 master spirits of paradise, the distributors of the Infinite Spirit to the universes. There is no direct representative of the third source and center on the headquarters of a super-universe. Each of these 7 creations is dependent on one of the master spirits of paradise, who acts through the 7 reflective spirits situated at the capital of the super-universe. The next and continuing creative act of the Infinite Spirit is disclosed from time to time in the production of the creative spirits. Every time the Universal Father and the Eternal Son become parent to a Creator Son, the Infinite Spirit becomes ancestor to a local universe creative spirit, who becomes the close associate of that Creator Son in all subsequent universe experience. Just as it is necessary to distinguish between the Eternal Son and the Creator Sons, so it is necessary to differentiate between the Infinite Spirit and the creative spirits, the local universe coordinates of the Creator Sons. What the Infinite Spirit is to the total creation, a creative spirit is to a local universe. The third source and center is represented in the grand universe by a vast array of ministering spirits, messengers, teachers, adjudicators, helpers, and advisors, together with supervisors of certain circuits of physical, morontial, and spiritual nature. Not all of these beings are personalities in the strict meaning of the term. Personality of the finite creature variety is characterized by 1. Subjective self-consciousness. 2. Objective response to the Father's personality circuit. There are creator personalities and creature personalities, and in addition to these 2 fundamental types, there are personalities of the third source and center, beings who are personal to the Infinite Spirit, but who are not unqualifiedly personal to creature beings. These third source personalities are not a part of the Father's personality circuit. First source personality and third source personality are mutually contactable. All personality is contactable. The Father bestows personality by His personal free will. Why He does so we can only conjecture. How He does so we do not know. Neither do we know why the third source bestows non-Father personality. But this the Infinite Spirit does in His own behalf in creative conjunction with the Eternal Son, and in numerous ways unknown to you. The Infinite Spirit can also act for the Father in the bestowal of first source personality. There are numerous types of third source personalities. The Infinite Spirit bestows third source personality upon numerous groups who are not included in the Father's personality circuit, such as certain of the power directors. Likewise does the Infinite Spirit treat as personalities numerous groups of beings such as the creative spirits, who are in a class by themselves in their relations to encircuited creatures of the Father. Both first source and third source personalities are endowed with all and more than man associates with the concept of personality. They have minds embracing memory, reason, judgment, creative imagination, idea association, decision, choice, and numerous additional powers of intellect wholly unknown to mortals. With few exceptions, the orders revealed to you possess form and distinct individuality. They are real beings. A majority of them are visible to all orders of spirit existence. Even you will be able to see your spiritual associates of the lower orders as soon as you are delivered from the limited vision of your present material eyes and have been endowed with a Urantia form, with its enlarged sensitivity to the reality of spiritual things. The functional family of the third source and center, as it is revealed in these narratives, falls into 3 great groups. Roman numeral 1, the Supreme Spirits, a group of composite origin that embraces, among others, the following orders. 1. The 7 Master Spirits of Paradise. 2. The reflective spirits of the super-universes. 3. The creative spirits of the local universes. Roman numeral 2. The Power Directors, a group of control creatures and agencies that function throughout all organized space. Roman numeral 3. The personalities of the infinite spirit. This designation does not necessarily imply that these beings are third-source personalities, though some of them are unique as will creatures. They are usually grouped in 3 major classifications. 1. The higher personalities of the infinite spirit. 2. The messenger hosts of space. 3. The ministering spirits of time. These groups serve on Paradise, in the central or residential universe, in the super-universes, and they embrace orders that function in the local universes, even to the constellations, systems, and planets. The spirit personalities of the vast family of the divine and infinite spirit are forever dedicated to the service of the ministry of the love of God and the mercy of the Son, to all the intelligent creatures of the evolutionary worlds of time and space. These spirit beings constitute the living ladder whereby mortal man climbs from chaos to glory.
Revealed on Urantia by a divine counselor of Uversa, commissioned by the Ancients of Days to portray the nature and work of the Infinite Spirit.